Hi, today I'd like to welcome to the podcast Renee Mueller. She is the president and co-founder of Elite Real Estate Systems. And Renee started investing in real estate in 2000, became a licensed agent that year. She opened her own brokerage in 2018. In 2020, Renee partnered with Jeff Cohn and expanded all of their core services, offering them to brokers and teams nationwide. Last year, she and Jeff finalized details for their reorganization and officially formed the holding company, which is now Elite Real Estate Systems, or ERS. So welcome, Renee.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. It's great to see you again. I know we have met in person. We had the pleasure of meeting in person at Gathering of Eagles last year. So
Yes.
it was a wonderful event. Give you a little plug there.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me a little bit about you embarked on this huge project with Jeff to reorganize the company. And I know a lot of brokers are really interested in that. And obviously with margins as compressed as they are and with everything going on in the industry, core services are a huge part of a way to kind of make up that income. So let's start at the beginning. What was your actual goal with the reorganization and what spurred that decision to do so?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, as you said, I started in 2000 with investing and eventually got my license because I thought that's where you'd get the good deals if you were a licensed agent. And so, looking at how this industry has changed over the years, obviously we need to all be less reliant on the commissions and those dollars coming in, and look at how we can make the company more sticky, if you will. So setting up for success, having the core services, we had some marketing partnerships, through the years, and obviously some great partnerships with regard to title, mortgage, insurance, some of the loan officers that we worked with over the years. But really looking at how we could make the company, again, a lot more sticky and better investment for those coming in, not only to the C-suite and to the ownership groups, but to the agents. And that's one of the biggest things that we've noted over the course of the last 3 years with the setup. Now, we've gone through a lot over the last 3 years, starting with COVID. 2020 is when Jeff and I actually truly partnered. We started talking about a partnership in 2018. We were both licensed, had very successful teams, and it just, we needed to go to the next level, and so that's when we partnered, like I said, in 2020. So imagine everything opening in 2020, mortgage included, and what that was like. So our focus was really shifted back to helping the agents, and unfortunately, it just didn't happen fast enough. But here we are. So 2024, which is unbelievable to say, and yeah, we have the setup. So you touched on the reorg. So the point of that is to have a holding company, not just have all these different ancillaries, and you have a brokerage, right? But to have the setup where we actually have shareholders, we have investors in the company, we have the synergies across all of those verticals, and that makes a difference. So you've got one chief of AI, say, over all of those companies. You've got one president. You've got and all those synergies. It just makes sense.
And so, with all the ancillary services, what is the ownership, or what is the business model of those? Are there any marketing agreements anymore? Or do you fully own all of your core services now?
We fully own all of the core services right now. So title, mortgage, insurance, property management, the coaching company is part of that. And there's coaching across all of those verticals, and investing is also part of it.
Okay.
So obviously we started in Nebraska. That's where we're based out of. That's where ERS was founded, and morphed into what it is today through a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears, we'll say, a lot of time invested. But so we do have the C-suite. I think you and I talked about that just a little bit.
Yep.
Which is Jeff, founder, CEO, myself as president. We've got a COO, which is also, he's also serving as our chief of AI. We've got a CMO, and then a whole traverse of people underneath of those. So all of which have the ability to invest in. Most of our C-suite, we either have them earn in equity or the ability to buy in. And so then over the course of time, they have, again, a little bit more stickiness, if you will. We've got, most of them will have 3 to 5 years of being fully vested before they are able to, let's say, cash in those shares if that's what they want to do. And we've got a great team. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can say. We finally have the right people involved, the right team involved to move forward fast and furious.
Yeah, that's so important. And I know that you're in, I think, 15 states now, correct?
Yep. Depending on the vertical, we're in 15
Okay.
states. So there's a few that are harder as far as mortgage and insurance go. Insurance
Right.
is struggling. I mean, the prices have been outrageous over the last few years, but especially this last 12 months. And so there's states that we definitely don't want to go into. But for the most part, we have 15 states where we have mortgage, title, insurance. Property management, not quite yet. So it just depends, like I said, on the vertical.
Yeah.
And we started beta testing this last year with the teams and brokerages that reached out to us. Some of them were already in coaching, powered by ERS. And so we started really just beta testing to see perfect the tech stack that we have, perfect the processes, perfect AI, and that's one thing we'll talk about just a little bit as well. But so really looking at the setup of all of that and seeing what we needed to change before moving on to where we are today with going what we call public in 2024 and giving the ability publicly for people to partner with ERS.
Yeah, and so you decided to go the ESOP route, which is employee ownership. So tell me, about that process and decision.
Yeah, so if those that do not know what an ESOP is, the employee stock option program, it starts with having the ability to look at a bird's eye view of a company and see, we've got all of these different entities. Are there synergies across the board with them? How do we, again, make it more sticky for those that we want to keep in our world, not just the C-suite or investors, but also the agents. And so looking at the setup, it takes all of those verticals, little mergers within all of those verticals, and then where we are today, actually legally having what's called an A reorg done. And there's many benefits to having an ESOP, not just on the company side of it and the setup and having the ability to invest in it, but then also looking at the tax structure. There's obviously, we didn't want to have any sort of tax event that was taking place. And so in order to have all of those different verticals and entities roll up into one without having a tax event, this was the best setup. This was the best thing that we could do in, really just looking at everything. And so an A reorg is the first step before you fully become an ESOP. And so that's where we're at this point. And the next step would be the ESOP. But we, again, just looking at the setup and making sure that it's exactly correct for everyone. The synergies are there. The tech stack is something we can use all across the board, and really diving deep into it. So,
Okay, great. And so what does your structure look like now? Tell me a little bit about how you're set up. You obviously have a holding company, and then what is your ultimate growth plan from here?
yeah, Elite Real Estate Systems is the holding company, and then all the verticals underneath. And obviously, like I said, there's coaching within that for each of those verticals. So the trajectory right now, if we're looking at the setup of the company, the trajectory would be that we want to be in 48 states, we'll say. I mean, there's a few that we don't want to go into, like I said. But as far as the setup, I mean, are you looking more for the foundation of how we set it up for profit sharing?
Well, I guess that would be interesting, but I'm also looking at, like, if I'm a team or a broker looking at your company, what is, how what does that look like?
Well, so again, it started as a coaching company, Tracy. And, I think that's the biggest thing that teams and brokerages are looking for is everyone wants a solution, right? They want a savior. And what is that? And so we have the right setup for anyone that wants to come in and have a plug and play, the best solution for, coaching their agents or their brokerage, and that goes with partnering then with all the ancillaries as well. So again, we have mortgage, title, insurance, property management, and it gives them the ability to really just open the floodgates to opportunity to the agents that they have. Again, not relying on just the commission, which is very important. So anyone wanting to partner with us, we'll go in and analyze how they're doing business at this point, and they can come in and partner with us in any one of those verticals or all of them. And each state, we have the ability right now. Our plan is to set up a JV, one JV in each state with those teams or brokerages that are coming in, and then they have ownership in all of that as well, and they can help expand. So we won't have a ton of JVs in every state just because of the workload that is. We'll have one that everybody just basically ties into. So it's really similar to setting up an ESOP or reorganizing a company in that way. So you don't have all these, tons of little groups that are doing things differently. And like I said, all the workload that goes with that. So we'll have one JV, and we will operate. Our team, our organization will help operate all of that, obviously. So.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the hard part. These are the lessons learned through this process. So the process, I mean, really, it's ongoing, but it took you about really 3 years, correct, to get to the point you are now, where you're really kind of launching out there. So tell me some of like the challenges, mistakes, the lessons that you've learned through the process. Any sticking points that you had to get over. I feel like this is kind of the meat of the podcast. This is what really brokers wanna understand. What are they facing?
Yeah, and I'm happy to share that. Like I said, we've made plenty of mistakes, and I'm sure we'll make plenty more. So I would say the biggest things that in my memory that stick out as mistakes would be not moving fast enough, not hiring the right people in the beginning, not keeping the eye on maybe the management pieces as far as those people even are involved, in the very beginning. And ultimately, top of the list would be not making it sticky enough for the agents and the rest of the crew from the beginning, because everyone wants to make the most and be the most productive and feel like they are important and they're owners. And so from the beginning, there's that natural attrition for brokerages and teams, losing agents and gaining agents. And we've lost a lot along the way because we didn't have the ability for them to invest in the ancillaries. They wanted to have their own partnerships, their own way of doing business, which is understandable. We didn't move quick enough. And starting in 2020, obviously a big part of that was COVID. And so really going back to, we took our eye off the target of creating this entity, forming what we have today as ERS, and went back to helping the agents try to survive and figure out how to do business in 2020. And we really should have just kept our eye on the ball with moving forward at the foundation and allowing more of a way for them to invest at that same time. And it wasn't possible at that point. So, I would say that's the biggest thing that we all regret. And then again, not hiring the right people from the beginning. We have the perfect team now. Everyone's on the same page. We scrambled and we were going in so many different directions. So just focus is a big deal.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember who said it, but they said if you have more than three priorities, you have too many.
That's
And
exactly
it's
right.
so easy, especially when you're reorganizing this huge, company that is filled with, ancillary services. It's easy to kind of get lost in a bunch of different directions. So
Yeah, most definitely. So I just needed to push a little bit harder, the search was on for the right people from the beginning. It didn't happen, like I said, fast enough, and so here we are. We're very fortunate that and we saw from that point, Tracy. That's the thing. I think some of the lawsuits, if you want to touch on that just a little bit, had
yes.
started the DOJ investigation. Again back in 2019, I think,
Yeah.
and so we were all very well aware of the fact that we needed to have a ship, for protection of those people around us and the teams and agents that we had. And so, we were well aware from that point that we needed to make sure something was happening and that we were getting the right pieces in place so that we could survive, and have those paddles and could make way, to be successful. And, I'm glad that we are in the position we are now. We're very fortunate, and just want to spread the word about what is available and what the right setup should be to not only survive but thrive in markets like we're heading into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna go to my question about the commission lawsuit since you brought that up. What are some trends that you're seeing out there in the landscape that really um may change the way the real estate industry operates, and like how have you structured your company to prepare for that? How are you preparing for that? You know, despite the outcome, things are going to change.
Yeah. Yeah, they will. They will. I think, I don't have a crystal ball, obviously, but, I think we're heading to more of a market like Australia has, and we have from the beginning, and the reason that I brought it up is looking at, this taking place and starting in 2019, we started talking to our teams very openly about it at that point,
Yeah.
and the fact that they needed to become more of an advisor than an agent and just rely on the commission. And the hardest piece was, once things started to open up again, as 2020, the end of 2020 and 21 was craziness. It was massive sales. I mean, the agents who would, think at that point when you're making the most and it's, so easy, houses are flying off the shelf, that there's a problem. And so, we really wanted to emphasize that they needed to focus on really becoming that expert and that advisor and not just relying on the commission. And so, the best thing that we did was make sure that we had this set up moving forward like we do now. There's no, I mean, you can coach all you want and teach on buyer exclusive agency and how important that is, and what the agents should be doing as far as their presentations, and let's focus on seller leads instead of buyer leads, which you see, I mean, companies like Zillow suffering because of they're really heavily focused on buyer leads. But I think the main thing is to look at the foundation of the company and what else is included. What can you do moving forward, and not just relying on the commission. So truly, we are where we are. And like I said, I'm thrilled for that because, this is, if you call it a trend, I would say, moving forward, this is the trend that is going to allow for success.
And I have a question for you about the core services. I mean, it's a huge financial undertaking, obviously, to do, especially mortgage. So how did you weigh the pros and cons of that and decide to move forward the way that you did?
That's a great question, Tracy. And I would say that's probably on the list of mistakes as well. Everyone has a great deal of pride, I think, especially in this industry, and like I said, the agents want to have their own thing and their own partnerships. And that goes back to starting mortgage or insurance even, I think you can choose to partner with someone and open a JV, let's say, or start your own from scratch. And after about the second year, a little more than that in, we all went, what are we doing? Why didn't we, just partner with someone instead of, starting from scratch? Because as you touched on, mortgage was the most difficult to start from scratch. And I think that's why we're so proud now that we have, 12 loan officers. We're in, I want to say 14 to 15 states with mortgage. It's something to be very proud of. We had the one of the best RESPA attorneys in the country at that point on our side. And I had met him at a conference, I think that was similar to Gathering of Eagles, maybe more focused on banks and mortgage companies. And so just starting to visit with him on the next steps moving forward, and how do we set this up? Then how do we move to the next step and go correspondent from being just a mortgage company? It takes a lot of money, a lot of stress, a lot of time, and like I said, I think that makes us all more proud to say, look at what we've gone through, all the adversity. So I mean, that was a great question, Tracy, but there was no going back after that point. We'd spent enough money and time. I think in that second year, we just went, we've got to do this. We're going to make it, somehow, if we have to, sacrifice, another piece of the team, and we did. Like I said, we had that natural attrition, but at the same time, because our focus then was not on the agents themselves and building the team that we had, even further, it was more, let's look at the ancillaries, because that's what it's going to take to survive, and then we'll rebuild the team or the brokerage.
And is that where you are now, kind of rebuilding the team and
That's
brokerage?
exactly where we are now.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I think I mentioned before we started here that we are with Keller Williams, where KW Elite is the name of the brokerage that we rolled up into the reorg. But we are brokerage agnostic as far as ERS goes. And so we'll partner with any team or brokerage that's the right fit, regardless of the brand. But that is exactly where we are with rebuilding all of the entities, but most definitely rebuilding the team part of it, because they're obviously the ones that are supporting those ancillaries, giving them the true ability to invest in it rather than say you have to have a minimum of, this much time in the industry or this much business. We don't want to look at what they have to give us necessarily. We just want to make sure that they have the ability to invest and feel, like they're part of the team as well.
Okay. And what do you feel like were like the best decisions that your team made in restructuring? Whether they were, kismet or just happened, or whether they were actually strategically planned.
Yeah, definitely. Most were very intentional. And that was the biggest thing, is just being intentional about all of it,
Yeah.
looking at what parts and pieces do we really need instead of just adding people and adding, certain systems. The best thing was really taking a deep dive, looking at what do we truly need? What can we get rid of? And, I realized back, in, I would say 2021, how much of an impact AI was having on every industry, not just this one, but every industry. And so, that was a big thing to look at. Is there an expert out there? Who, it's so stressful, and you can really get stuck in the weeds when you're looking at the setup of, here's our tech stack, and are the integrations set up correctly, and where's IT come into play? And so, looking at, again, the right parts and the right people, we realized that we needed someone who was an expert in AI to come in and help look at, how we can save money and get the right setup. And so I would say one of the best decisions was, again, looking at, not just the right setup, but the parts and pieces we need to save money in that setup. And so we hired a chief of AI who's also serving as our COO, and his name is Sean Quintero. He's out of California, and a lot of our C-suite is actually kind of a hybrid model. They're mostly remote, very involved. Every day we meet up and have our huddles and go over what needs to be done. But I think that allowed for us to really grow and move faster than what we had been, and saved a tremendous amount of money in the beginning as well. And so, I think last year at the Gathering of Eagles, I heard one of the speakers make a comment about AI and how, she was just going to ignore it and hope it went away. And I thought to myself, that's the scariest thing I've heard. So it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, and so you had mentioned that you like saved, I think the first quarter, $40,000. Give me more specifics. Where is AI? How has AI helped save money? And are you using it operationally as well as in your tech stack marketing wise?
Yes, most definitely, Tracy. And that's a great question. So, just as an example, looking at the marketing pieces of it. So, you can cut out two or three human individuals with certain pieces of AI. So just looking at the creation of content, you look at how much content Gary Vee pushes out.
Yeah.
We're not quite to that level, but we're getting there, and it moves a lot faster. Obviously, when you have AI and all the right pieces in place. So you look at the content creation, what it takes to have a podcast and create those videos and do the editing and all those. So when you have the right AI pieces put in place, you can take a video or a podcast like this, and you can create thousands of pieces of marketing from that
Yeah.
with AI. So that's just one example, looking at what it costs and how much of a savings that is. Or again, looking at all the integrations, making sure you have the right integrations in place. We had, some of the same CRMs across all those boards, and we had a couple different pieces. We had a couple different CRMs. We had, we were using way too many pieces of tech, and looking at what we needed to do to minimize that. And then, like I said, get the right integrations. And, another example would be, we have a grant writing team. And so AI is not quite to the level that it could be with regard to grants or grant writing, just because of I think because of the regulations, and you want the human component in there when you're looking at writing some of those grants. And so, but looking at the platform that we utilize to target the grants, I mean, that's something that AI is a big piece of. And then also with the writing, not going into Chat GPT, or, there's a few other systems, Jasper, but we do have a couple pieces of AI that are different from that will help with the writing and give it more of a human component. And so, you take a team that might be 4 or 5 grant writers and it's down to one, and they're saving a ton of time because of AI. So those are just some examples.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I want to explore it looking for grants and scholarships for my daughter heading to college. I saw a couple of different applications that allow you to match them up. So
They
I will
do.
be
Yeah,
looking at that.
and there's more and more every day. We have
Yeah.
about 6 platforms that target those,
Yeah.
and I've got a daughter going to college in the fall as well, so it's been a little bit stressful. I wish we had AI that would fill out the FAFSA form or something. Some of
Yeah,
that stuff is
exactly.
required, it's a nightmare.
Oh.
But yeah, there's a lot of great technologies out there, and
Mhm.
again, going back to even just looking at creating content, you can create a video of yourself with sound that sounds just like you.
Yes.
It's not you, talk about
Yeah.
saving time and getting you out of, several different buckets of things. So,
Yeah, it's great for training. I mean,
yeah.
you don't actually have record all of those videos yourself and yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah, and there's another one, that we started using right away that's pretty easy. I think
Mhm.
it's called Scribe,
Mhm.
and, that's something that you can have on your screen. Any of your employees, you can or anyone, you can do the same
Yeah.
thing, have it on your screen, it records what you're doing, and then also will create an SOP so that,
Mm.
that training video is something that's processed automatically, handed on to the next person that, needs it instead of using that human component again to do all of that. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I wanna get a little personal here and talk about your aha moment in your career. It could have been early on. It could have been way before all of this. But what is that most impactful kind of aha moment that you realized, "I want more," or "I wanna change things," or "I need to do something different?"
Oh gosh, that's every day, Tracy. I realize I want more, I wanna do something different.
Yeah.
I think over the years, as fast as this industry, or some would say maybe not so fast, has changed, the things I look back on, I mean, I don't know if I've had really one big aha moment, except for the fact that maybe, again, in 2019, um, looking at what was happening with the industry, seeing that there was a real viable chance that this case that the DOJ was going to keep pushing. I mean, even before 2019, this was something that they were looking into and really pushing, quite a bit. And just looking at the fact that it really was going to happen, we needed to make something change in our industry, in our, ecosystem, let's say, for starters. And it really seemed that it was just very apparent at that point that, we needed to do what we're doing now and get the setup correct. And so, I mean, again, I don't think there's been any real big aha moment as far as, this is what I'm going to do in my life. This is, this, for whatever reason, has always been automatic for me. I've never really worked for anyone, Tracy. I went to college, it dropped out as a junior in college, knowing that I wanted to be an investor. I had already started investing in properties at that point. And I think Jeff's story is actually very similar. You just get something in your system, and investing was very natural. Understanding how money worked was very natural. Looking at how companies really work, and those synergies that are across those verticals, like I mentioned that we have. It all has been not easy, but something that seemed just very natural to me and to most of those that we have in our world right now, which you just know at that point, when we finally had the last hire, the last piece of our C-suite, that what I would say was probably a real big aha. Like, look at this. I mean, it just feels like, glorious. Like we have the right people and we know it, and it feels right, and it's just it's the best thing. So I would say that probably would be the biggest and best aha most recently.
Yeah, it's the hardest too. I mean, you think you're putting the right person in the right spot and you don't always know until they've been there. And then you have to start from scratch. So, that's definitely huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree, I would agree.
Yeah.
And, and I think that that's probably something that's not real common. It takes a lot of time and years. So,
Yeah.
And I think, Steve Murray would probably say the same for you, right? Look at this perfect person that, you suit this role so well. And, it was great meeting with him and visiting with him. And I don't know that I mentioned this, but we did receive our evaluation from Steve. It was someone else
Yep.
that I reached out to almost 2 years ago now, and just started asking questions. And he's so great with giving of his time, and answering questions, and very timely as well. And so we received our evaluation from Steve Murray right before the event, right before the last Gathering of Eagles formally received that valuation. And that's really how we started the foundation of, here's what the shares will be worth, here's what we need to do for the setup, here's how we'll handle the C-suite, and starting to raise our capital with those seed funds. And so it was just great visiting with someone who has been in the industry so long, and he's an expert in all things, and answered questions. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know anyone with the depth of knowledge that he has, and he was obviously my mentor going through learning about real estate brokerage. So yeah.
did you start from scratch, Tracy? I have to ask that.
No, I actually, well, so I was the editor of Florida Realtor Magazine for the Florida Association of Realtors,
Really?
right out of college, and then I left to go freelance in I think it was like 2004. And Steve was someone I always really admired. I had interviewed him quite a few times. I called him, and I started kind of as a contractor with him, and then just progressed from there, and built up all of the content for Real Trends. So he had a newsletter at the time, and basically it was him producing all of the content. So we came up with podcasts and videos, and
Oh,
a
wow. Yeah.
website and
Yeah.
everything.
Well,
So
both of you
yeah.
probably have a unique view on AI then, as far as
Yeah,
writing
yeah.
goes, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Good.
Well, my final question is just what's next for Elite Real Estate Systems as you start to grow your team and really focus on the agents and brokers who are part of the system?
Yeah. So what's next is exactly where we're at. We're moving and shaking, and now that we're finally able to offer everything publicly, with the reorg being done, next step is formally getting the ESOP completed, and so we've got a short timeline for that. But I would say just continuing to spread the word, and let other brokers and teams know that there is this great ability to partner with someone who can help you through those turbulent times, and the right setup in place. Again, being a plug and play is a big deal, because there's we've done all the hard stuff, we've made those mistakes, so let us just come and help you move on to the next step. And so that's for us, just moving along with all the expansions. And so we do have teams and brokerages that are set to launch with us in this first quarter, and just looking at how many we will add each say 30 days. So yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you so much for joining Real Trending and sharing all of that with us. And good luck on your daughter heading to
You as
college. I
well.
am with you in the weeds on that one. So
We'll have to talk about
yeah,
that again.
yeah, definitely. We'll have to catch up and find out where they end up. We've
That'd be
got a
great.
couple of different options, and she's still talking about applying to other schools. And I think some of the deadlines are February or January or something. And I'm
Yeah,
just
it's
like,
end of
oh,
January, I think. So
yeah,
I know I
yeah.
need to get on it as well. So
Yeah, yeah. So, well, thanks, Renee.
yeah, thank you, Tracy. Hopefully we'll see you at the Gathering of Eagles again.
Absolutely.